And I suspect, a lot of people think, well, why can't we just have more staff? Why can't we have more kind of people sitting there that we can call on? But you and I both know it's not that simple. But how do you get that message across to people in the team that, you can't just kind of have a bank of people there ready just to kind of come in at 2 minutes notice? How do you kind of manage those expectations with your team?
Well, I think I'm really open and honest with the team, and I'll say, we've got a certain budget for a certain number of team members. We can't go over that, unfortunately. And yes, we do have a bank of staff who will come in at short notice, but unfortunately that bank's dwindled a bit because people have decided they don't want to do working care anymore, or they've gone on to join another provider. So the bank hasn't really survived very well. We're trying to sort of build it back up again, but it's not easy to get people to come on sort of 0 hour contracts, if you like. People want the stability and knowing that they're going to get a set number of shifts per week. There's not really an awful lot, and I am brutally open and honest with them. I'll say, unfortunately, I don't have the money. If I ask my my line manager, can I employ another 2 or 3 members of staff, they'll more likely say no, because according to the figures that they've got, we're at our maximum staffing, and it's safe. We won't run unsafe. We'll always have enough staff to look after the residents that we have, but there is a limit to the number of. I can't have 8 or 9 people working on the floor when we don't have the budget for it.
Sure. I would imagine sometimes perhaps you have to kind of push back and manage up as well, though. So things like staffing ratio, it's not just as clear cut as X number of staff for X number of residents, because I would imagine it's heavily dependent upon things like needs of the residents. So how do you do
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the team think that we should always have more staff. It's just a common thing with carers. Oh, we're never enough staff. And then senior management will say, well, you've got plenty of staff for the number of residents you have. And I will push back then, and I'll say, well, actually, no. We do a needs assessment. We know how many hours or how many staff a certain resident requires to provide the high standards of care that we want to provide and that they deserve. So I will push back, and I have done in the past, in order to get more staff on board, because the dependency levels are increasing. As everybody knows, people don't tend to come into care homes now until they're much, much older and obviously very frail, and quite often with a lot of underlying conditions. So the dependency levels do tend to be quite high. So we do need to push back. I do push back, and I have done several times. But I think I've probably pushed it to the limit at the moment. I don't think I'd get away with trying that again with the bosses, with the powers that
Sure.
be.
Sure. So I guess I'm just thinking about how do you then kind of generate that kind of goodwill with the people that own the team? Because you're right, like you said earlier, there comes a point where that you can only pull that elastic band so far before it just snaps. So I'm curious as to find out what other types of things might you do. I would imagine, knowing how successful you are as a manager, for example, you perhaps really good at demonstrating empathy and listening to people's concerns rather than just kind of explaining it away as there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, so I don't know. Tell me more about how we would
Yeah,
do that.
I'd never ever say to them, I can't do any more, there's nothing else I can do. I will always look for a different way to do it. I'll always try, and if I know somebody's supposed to be working next weekend, for example, I'll ask them if they'll swap that weekend and come in and do this weekend instead, and then they'll have that weekend off. So I give them the time back. I'll always look for kind of innovative ways to try and cover shifts. It wouldn't be the first time I'd covered part of a shift myself. Just help out. I wouldn't ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Sure.
So, as a very, very last resort, I could put in a request for agency, which nobody wants in a home, because you lose the continuity of care. They don't know the residents, and that's usually why my team will always pick up the shifts, because they don't want agency staff coming in. They want to keep that continuity going. But I'll always try and be flexible. If someone needs the time off, I'll give them the time off. I'll come and go with them, because I know I'll get that extra 10% back from them.
Sure.
And I, as I say, I would try my best to ask people to come in and work this weekend instead of next weekend, for example, knowing that they're definitely getting next weekend off. I would try and sort of jig rotas around a bit to make sure that they worked for everybody, because I don't want to see the staff dropping exhausted. It's not good for them. It's not good for the home. It's not good for the residents. The team are entitled to their time off. It's very precious. they don't get a lot of it, and they work long hours.
Absolutely. They do a fantastic job. They work long hours and they're really committed and want to do a great job. And you're right, they're entitled to their time away from work. So some of the things that are kind of resonating with me that you're talking about is about being flexible. So you're demonstrating flexibility with them. It sounds like you are listening to them and also explaining what you can and cannot do. It would be very easy for someone just to assume that you can just wave a magic wand and all these staff come out from nowhere. But it doesn't happen like that. And I think if people understand what you can and cannot do, perhaps that makes a conversation easier. Do you think?
Definitely. I think if they can see it from my perspective, and they know I'm not just saying this as a stock answer, I'm just saying, no, definitely not, and pushing back. I always listen to them, and I will try and ask for help. If we've got a sister home nearby, I would contact one of my colleagues, my other manager colleagues, to see if they've got any staff available that could come and help. I've done that in the past, and we've done that ourselves. We've gone and helped other homes when they've been in crisis. So we've got that network of staff around about. So I'll try all sorts to try and get shifts covered before asking people to pick up even more hours.
Well, thank you for your time. Once again, it's been great getting your insights into that, and that's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay,
See you next time.
See you next time.